All right, I'd like to call our meeting to order, and Deputy Mayor McKetty is off on personal leave at our meeting. We'll dispense with the land acknowledgement that was done at the previous meeting. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda is presented to you. Members of council, hearing none. We do have delegations here, and I will ask our both directors here from Public Works and Planning to introduce our guests and take us to the agenda at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're quite pleased this evening to have members of our consulting team who have been working on the Tecumseh Hamlet secondary plan over quite an extensive period of time, but most recently over the last number of months, really bringing together the work that had been completed, had been delayed for a period of time, and then recommenced. And it ties in quite nicely with the strategic objectives that Council had put on the table late last spring, early summer, to advance development lands in the Tecumseh Hamlet secondary plan area. In particular, this evening, we have Dorsa Jalalian from Dialogue, a senior urban designer, Christine Wilkinson, engineer, and Laura Hurley, engineer with Dillon Consulting, who will lead us through the PowerPoint presentation. Phil and I are certainly here to assist with any questions or matters that require clarification. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, we look forward to this presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And whoever's leading us, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Dorsa Jalalian, and I'm a senior urban designer with Dialogue. So we'd like to provide you with a status update on the Tecumseh Hamlet secondary plan project. Next slide, please. So today we are hoping to provide you with a quick process overview, go through some of the highlights of the plan, and provide some update on servicing and transportation, and then we'll open up for questions. And again, like mentioned, we are here with Dylan to provide you with the status update. So in terms of the process overview, if we can go to the next slide. So, well, first of all, in August of 2011, some of you may remember the town of Tecumseh initiated a study to complete the Tecumseh Hamlet secondary plan. And the intent of the secondary plan was to provide a planning, servicing, transportation, and urban design policy framework for large tracts of undeveloped lands that the official plan identifies for future urban development. So as you can see on the screen, to orient ourselves, you can see in thick black line, the Tecumseh Hamlet settlement area bounded by County Road 22 to the north, Manning Road to the east, Banwell to the west, and to the south, we have County Road 42 generally. And the area highlighted in orange is the secondary plan area that's currently designated as future development in the current town of Tecumseh official plan. After a series of public consultations back in 2012, the study was deferred pending the completion of a number of processes and studies that were required in order to support the completion of the secondary plan, including the City of Windsor's Banwell Road Municipal Class EA, the town of Tecumseh's secondary plan, Hamlet secondary plan traffic impact study, as well as the Upper Little River stormwater management study. And with the completion of the preceding studies, the town reinitiated the secondary plan process in mid-2022. Next slide, please. So again, many of you may remember the previous secondary plan process and may have been involved with it, but the process I'm going over right now is the process we took as part of the reinitiation project starting at in mid-2022 and is structured in 4 phases. As you can see, parallel to the tasks we completed at each stage, we have designed a series of consultations tailored to the topic we were exploring at each stage. In phase 1, we started reviewing the background information and policy context. As you can imagine, there's been a few key policy documents that have been updated and revised since last time we looked at the secondary plan, most notably the town's official plan, the 2021 update to the Parks Master Plan, as well as Transportation Master Plan, and of course, the studies we just mentioned that this reinitiation depended on. Parallel to this work, we had one-on-one interviews with major landowners to really understand their unique perspective and vision for the future of their lands and the hamlet. In phase 2, we reviewed the vision and principles we've previously developed with the community to make sure that they're still relevant and they speak to the current challenges and opportunities in Hamlet. And we did so through an in-person workshop with key landowners, as well as a public information center and a formal in-person open house to review the vision and principles, as well as the concept plan. In phase 3, which is where we are today, is when we refined the plan, started making revisions to the secondary plan document itself, and incorporated the public input as well as the technical studies. And today we are providing the council with a status update, and in 2 days, we will have another in-person public information center, which I hope we will see some of you at. And phase 4 is really about finalizing the secondary plan document based on the input we have gathered and the parallel technical analysis, and hand the project over to the town for approvals as in form of an official plan amendment. In phase 4, also, you will see me once again at that phase for one final presentation. And here's just a couple of images of our previous engagement with the community, our key landowners workshop back in October, and a public information center that was actually held in the council chamber. So just to quickly provide you with some highlights of the plan, we'll start out with the design vision. The secondary plan will shape and guide change in the hamlet in a manner which will preserve the village-like qualities in scale of the hamlet. The vision reflects an appropriate level of residential and commercial intensification, mix of uses, and connectivity to support a more complete, sustainable, vibrant, and self-sufficient community, in keeping with the many aspirations, priorities, and objectives of the town and existing community. The vision defines a beautiful and distinct new community structured along green corridors that connect neighborhoods throughout. And it will be a complete community, green, walkable, and for everyone to live, work, study, and shop locally. At a glance, here are some of the key statistics. At its full build out, the secondary plan area will provide approximately 3,700 new housing units that can accommodate over 8,000 people. You can see that the secondary plan area is primarily residential, around 60% of it, but it will also be very green. Looking at the parks, open spaces, and the woodlots that will preserve, over 27% of the hamlet will be green and open for all to enjoy. And you can also see that to support the vision of providing a complete mixed-use community, we'll have a variety of commercial uses to serve the hamlet. To direct the future growth, the secondary plan provides 3 main frameworks: built form, open space, and movement. The built form framework is intended to create a coherent and appropriate built form strategy, provide a diversity of housing options, and community amenity nodes. So here's the land use plan that shows the built form structure. You can start to see some of the big moves that were envisioned for the hamlet reflected in the land use plan. You can see an interconnected road network and grid-like block pattern that are not too long, which makes them more walkable, and that the plan provides for a mix of uses such as residential, commercial, and a range of open spaces like parks, stormwater ponds, and natural heritage features. You can also see a consideration for a future school site in purple, that's institutional land use designation that is sized and located in consultation with the town school boards and is strategically located next to a park and central to the neighborhood so that kids can easily walk or bike to school and benefit from adjacency to a park. You can also see that within the residential land use designations, the plan provides for a diversity of housing options through a variety of density permissions. We have low density, medium density, and high density residential. And the goal is to provide a mix of high quality housing forms, including single family housing to townhouses and apartments. And the high density residential, that's that darker orange color that we have, that's strategically located along Banville Road, which is a major corridor and around the two commercial and amenity nodes that we have on either sides of the CP rail on north and south side of the hamlet. The medium density, that's the lighter orange, the medium density residential, that's generally located in close proximity to open spaces such as parks and stormwater ponds. In low density residential in yellow, that provides a transition from higher density to existing established neighborhoods, but also provides opportunities for smaller lots, again, to achieve that goal of providing a diversity of housing options. So let's take a closer look at what are the built form permissions of the proposed land uses. And something to note is that all residential designations are, their permissions are consistent with the provisions of the town's official plan in terms of height, massing, and density. So low density residential, that will permit up to 2.5 stories with singles, semi-detached housing and duplex buildings with permitted density of up to 20 units per hectare. Medium density residential, that will allow for townhouses, stack towns, row house, walk-up apartments, small scale apartments up to 4 stories, and will permit a density of 20 to 50 units per hectare. So you can see how we have both low density and medium density designations within each neighborhood. And as for high density neighborhoods, like mentioned before, they're strategically located along a major corridor and within the 2 commercial nodes that are envisioned for the hamlet. High density residential allows for apartment buildings, nursing homes, rest homes, retirement homes, up to 6 stories with opportunities for retail at grade with permitted density of over 50 units per hectare. The Main Street commercial area designation represents a fine-grained boutique-style commercial typology, which extends beyond that anchor commercial that we have envisioned at the Banville Road Gateway. The policies of this designation permit a full range of commercial uses that define a main street intended to serve residents in a pedestrian-oriented format with buildings located closer to the sidewalk. Animated uses at grade and residential uses are permitted above the street level in the form of apartment and live-work units. Anchor commercial and plaza commercial. So the hamlet anchor commercial, that's which includes a retail plaza at the intersection of Banville Road and Maisonneuve Street, serves as the primary commercial anchor for the amenity node area at the north end of the hamlet. And the recommended uses for this area include large footprint commercial buildings such as grocery store and pharmacy, and is intended to serve the hamlet community as well as the broader community. And the plaza commercial and the commercial node at the intersection of Banville Road and Shields Street. The primary function of this commercial node is to service the local residents, the high school students from across the street, and is envisioned to be more immediate community serving in nature. So you can see how the 2 amenity nodes serve the hamlet, one at a regional scale and one at a more local scale, and they're located so that the majority of the hamlet can easily walk to a community amenity node, get their grocery, get ice cream, and meet their needs, basically. In terms of the movement framework intends to create a connected network of streets and blocks and provide active transportation opportunities. So the connected street network, that's next slide, please. The intent for that is to create an accessible block pattern with connected streets and shorter blocks and improved circulation to encourage walking and cycling. And you can see how the proposed network connects to the existing roads within the hamlet, but also the neighboring communities. The movement framework establishes a hierarchy of streets that create a clear circulation pattern in street network for the hamlet. Each of them will have their unique street section and right-of-way width that is being looked at currently in collaboration with the transportation experts at Dillon. Pedestrian network. So sidewalks, landscape, open spaces, and other pedestrian infrastructure will connect seamlessly to the rest of the town's walkways and trails, as well as to the adjacent community's pedestrian network. As you can see, the pedestrian network includes a safe network of sidewalks in lighter blue, and trails, opportunities for trails, and also it can benefit from the existing and planned trails that has already been envisioned for the town. The pedestrian network connects all the neighborhoods and open spaces together and ensures that there is connectivity between south and north of the CP rail as well. The cycling network can also benefit from trail opportunities that we have envisioned for the study area, and proposes a safe network of cycling facilities. As you can see, certain roads have been identified to accommodate cycling through on-road or off-road facilities, and it's also aligned with the town's transportation master plan. In terms of transit, as part of the movement framework, we looked at planned transit for the hamlet and looked at opportunities to enhance and expand the future transit. City of Windsor Transit Master Plan actually recommends providing services in and to Tecumseh. One of the proposed routes in that transit master plan actually will serve the hamlet shown here in a blue solid line. So to ensure connectivity throughout the hamlet, especially along the corridors that we have higher intensification, such as Banville Road, we are proposing to expand the planned routes. Another idea is extending Shields to the west to connect to Banville Road, as you can see on this map and the next slide. And extending Shields to the west will be done so through careful design consideration as it goes partially through the McAuliffe Park's parking lot, and it will be designed with enhanced streetscape and traffic calming measures, cycling facilities, and a multi-use pathway. Here are some precedent photos to capture the vision for Shields extension and show how we are planning to provide enhanced in-landscape pedestrian connections for safe movement between existing seniors residence, the future parking area, and the park itself. And in the next slide, you can see that we're planning to provide a very pedestrian-oriented streetscape through the McAuliffe Park area for improved pedestrian safety and traffic slowing. Additionally, we have envisioned to provide a double row of trees to make sure that we maintain that green character and enhance the streetscape for that section of Shields. And the open space framework is intended to ensure a high quality public realm environment for the hamlet. It will link outdoor spaces through the creation of new parks, green streets, natural greenway corridors, and multi-use paths and trails to create a unique, beautiful, and healthy public realm environment. The plan provides a range of park types, recreation facilities, and open spaces in the hamlet and distributes them in an equitable manner across the community to ensure access to a diversity of recreation opportunities within approximately 15 minutes walking distance from each neighborhood. And you can see a variety of open spaces from new parks, expansion of existing parks, preserving and enhancing natural heritage features such as woodlots and stormwater ponds that they will be integrated into the open space network. The framework also identifies green streets, and green streets are specific roadways, as you can see identified on this map, that have enhanced streetscape and landscape treatments and function as key connectors to public parks and open spaces. And these streets are an important wayfinding component as well of the open space network and contribute to defining a unique and distinct character of place. Just taking a closer look at some of the open space features, you can see neighborhood scale parks that are located within 15-minute walking distance of each neighborhood. And the precedent image can very well be what the park we have envisioned adjacent to the potential future school site be like. You can see how the schoolyard in this image and the park will be read as one large open space and work seamlessly together with the park. Civic Commons is a unique neighborhood park for the hamlet situated within the commercial town center and intended to function as the main civic recreational space for the community. The park is envisioned as the primary public gathering space that serves that commercial and community node on that main street. Stormwater management ponds, as you all already know, are important infrastructure elements that help to manage the quantity and quality of stormwater runoffs from urban areas, but they also can be designed to be integrated into the open space network and contribute to the public realm and be open to the public, be used as a public amenity. So we have envisioned for them to be designed to provide multiple functions beyond stormwater management, such as recreational opportunities by including walking trails, bridges, and lookouts. And you will hear more about the stormwater ponds from my colleagues at Dillon just in a minute. And lastly, the existing McAuliffe Park will undergo future enhancement. The park will be expanded westerly along Shield Street to create additional active and passive recreational space, which can include a range of uses and elements, including soft and hard landscaping, innovative and unique children's playground, youth play facilities, public art, and many other features that can be enjoyed by all. But of course, a detailed park master plan will be created in consultation with the community for that later. So now I'm going to pass it to Dylan to provide an update on servicing considerations.
Okay, thank you, Dorsa, for that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and Administration. We, Dillon, we're working on the servicing component of this secondary plan. So we'll talk a little bit about the servicing strategy to allow the vision that Dorsa had described to come to life. So the first element is servicing. So we, working with Dialogue, we're confirming the servicing requirements based on the population growth projections for this area and developing a plan that's implementable and serviceable, taking into consideration all of the different functional design requirements and conflicts that may arise. So refinements were made to the municipal servicing strategy for this area. And those elements include the wastewater collection system, the water distribution network, and stormwater management network, and the transportation network. So we'll go through each one. So first, this wastewater servicing network. So the sanitary trunk system improvements were recommended through the town's 2018 Water and Wastewater Master Plan. These recommendations were reviewed and refined based on the latest secondary plan. This plan includes the implementation of a trunk sanitary sewer. That's the red line that you see on the left side of the screen. So it's a large trunk sanitary sewer that connects to County Road 22 at the north end of the site. It bisects the blue development area routing south, continuing past the rail corridor and through Shields, eventually connects to the County Road 42. At 42, there will be a stub for the future connection of the Maidstone Hamlet left there for that future connection. And as part of this work, there are a diversion sewer recommended on Intersection Road. And what that diversion sewer will do is allow the green area, which represents the sanitary drainage area, to be directed from its current outlet, which is West Bronx Road currently, and direct it to the West Hamlet trunk sewer. Similarly, there's a diversion sewer recommended on Shields. Similarly, that purple or pink area to the south is being diverted through a diversion sewer on Shields to also act to better distribute the sanitary flows in this area under ultimate conditions. So the next item is the water servicing. So similarly, water servicing recommendations were established in the town's 2018 Water and Wastewater Master Plan. So building on those recommendations, we've refined the alignment of the trunk water main to better align with the proposed road network. And And this trunk sewer is in a similar alignment to the trunk sanitary sewer that we had just reviewed in the previous slide. So in addition to this trunk water main interconnections to the town's existing system will be incorporated. So there are various locations where this trunk will interconnect with the town's existing system, and those include the water main on County Road 22, on Intersection Road, Shields Road, and again at County Road 42. So from a stormwater perspective, this secondary plan area is broken up into two main drainage areas. The area, the west area, with drainage that generally takes everything from L'Esperance Road west. That area is part of the upper reaches of the Upper Little River. That area includes 3 municipal drains that exist and are main outlets for this area. So those are the Gwen drain, which is located in the north portion of the site, the LaChance drain, which is routed along Intersection Road, and the existing Desjardins drain, which is south of the rail corridor. So each of those drains exists. They currently serve the existing residential area in and around L'Esperance and route all of that current drainage west. The southeast area, which is the southern part of the Hamlet area, that's the area that is south of the rail corridor and just west of Manning Road. That area is served by the Intea drain, and that area also needs to have a servicing strategy related to attenuating the runoff that will be accumulated once development occurs. So next slide. So similar to what Dorsa had mentioned, stormwater management facilities are required. Stormwater management facilities will provide runoff quality and quantity control for all new development areas to make sure that they meet the minimum required stormwater management requirements outlined by IRCA, as well as for the town's standard requirements. Each of those stormwater management ponds will be controlled and pumped out by a designated stormwater pumping station. And those pump stations will be located at the downstream end of these ponds, and they'll lift the flow from these deeper ponds to the shallow drains downstream. Flows will be controlled to the required allowable release rates that are established through previous studies. And that's all being considered in the establishment of the size and location for these ponds. It should be noted also that the overland flow from this area, so that's the flow that is accumulated on the surface during major rain events, are also going to be directed to these facilities. And considerations for the existing areas, like we spoke about, that discharge into those drains. And as an example, areas along Corby Lane, Shawnee, those areas also will contribute to these stormwater management ponds, and the flow and needs of those areas will be accounted for as well. So those areas, sorry, just to go back. So all of the area will be serviced by trunk storm sewer infrastructure. That storm sewer infrastructure will convey the flows to the ponds where they are temporarily held and then discharged downstream. Okay, next slide. And then just generally speaking about the road network, Dorsa spoke about the interconnectivity and the need for collector roads interconnected into this area. So the servicing strategy is looking at the necessary widths to accommodate all of the active transportation, vehicular and pedestrian and bike traffic, and also the underground infrastructure. So making sure that these right-of-ways are big enough to provide space for the trunk infrastructure that's required to provide this service. So we are looking at the right-of-way requirements for the proposed collector roads, and also reviewing how they will be interconnected into the existing neighborhoods where there's an interconnection to L'Esperance Road through Gwen, Maisonneuve intersection. Okay, next slide. So that was just an overview of the general servicing strategies that we're looking at as part of this area. Second to the secondary plan that's happening We have started the municipal class EA process. That's meant to review the alternatives that were evaluated through the previous master plans that we spoke about and come up with more detailed design options that will reflect the more detailed inventory of existing conditions in this area. So to give an overview of the class EA process, phase 1 is the identification of problems and opportunities and the definition of the scope area. So a notice of commencement has been distributed to property owners in the area as well as adjacent, and also agencies have been notified as well as adjacent municipalities. So this EA has been communicated to the public. Currently, we are completing an inventory of the natural, social, economic, and environmental landscapes of the area. And we've refined the solutions of those previous master plans based on the latest secondary plan. Our first PIC in conjunction with the secondary plan PIC that's scheduled for this Thursday. So again, we will speak more to where we're at with the EA part of this project at that time. Once that PIC is complete, we'll move forward with evaluating the design options based on what we've learned of the existing landscapes and things like environmental species at risk and those types of elements that we understand more about. We'll evaluate those options and then we will determine impacts and propose mitigation measures as part of the requirement. At that time, we'll meet with the public again to review our findings. And then after that, we will prepare a functional design report, summarize the consultation and mitigation measures that we've identified. And then we will meet with council again to have a final presentation and we will submit a notice of completion. And that will spark the starting of the 30-day review period through the EA process. Yeah, and I think that's it. I don't know, Dorsa, if you have anything else to add.
No, I think that's it. And maybe we can open it up for questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions or sort of comments? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Worship. I've got a couple of questions, so I've made some notes here. I'll just kind of go down my list here, but through you to, I guess the presenters. I think what we're seeing in the vision, I think it's fantastic, right? And it's actually exciting to see the incorporation of so many different elements. And I just want to recognize also the recognition of existing, because we do have new development abutting up residents that have been there for quite a while. And I think the big question is, what's going to be there, right? Or what am I going to see on the other side, which may have been a field for, a long time. And to see the lower residential abutting those, is great. And I think that'll put peace to mind to, a lot of residents who are kind of on the outskirts of what we know is the town today. The one concern I have with the entire area is Banwell Road, and we don't control Banwell Road. And, looking at 3,700 units, 8,000 residents, and the majority of the area will be, Banwell will be the outlet. We don't control Banwell. We're going to need some great partners on the city side to ensure that that road is, will meet the need of the area. And I do have concerns when the battery plant comes online that the road will accommodate everything that will be put there. And I recognize that we don't own it, but I'm hopeful that we've got great partners in the city of Windsor to help us with that roadway in order to accommodate the entire area. The one question I had in drainage has been a hot topic for a lot of residents in the Ward 4 area, because they've just been drains that we recently done or recently updated. So the only general question I have with regard to the development of this area, when will the drains be updated, or when those drainage schedules will be updated, or the maintenance schedules for those drains be updated. And if you could just provide a little information of the general process, because I recognize we've just updated a couple of them, but then they go completely through this, you know, Hamlet area, and that's going to be a question that I know I will receive. So maybe if you, maybe to Mr. Bartnick, if you can just provide, you know, some high level of, you know, what will happen and how those drains will be updated moving forward through the development of this entire area.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Houston. Very good question. If you look at the ultimate plan and the layout, the intent is for those drains to be fully enclosed in kind of a storm sewer network and diverted into the stormwater management pond. Those ponds would then regulate those flows and pump them out at a acceptable rate for the downstream drainage systems, being, you know, the Gwen drain, LaChance, and the third one escapes my my memory at the moment. Desjardins. Thank you. So typically, I think as development moves forward, and as plans of subdivision come forward, and as these drains are enclosed or diverted into the swim ponds, we will look to have those drainage reports and those drainage bylaws updated as part of that process as well. So most likely not until you see some activity or proposals coming forward, and then we'll do those, you know, the Municipal Drainage Act process, as well as the plan of subdivision process, kind of in parallel.
Thank you for the information. The other more common, just on the Shields extension through McAuliffe Park. I think I'm going to have to be sold on that a little bit more. I don't know how I feel about the you know, the roadway going right through the park, but the designs I see do look very nice. And I understand there's going to be an entire public process that we will go through that upgrade or through that extension. So, but I do have some concerns, you know, initially, just, and I know it's been brought up from time to time. So if you can maybe just comment on that a little bit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Yes, very good question. And one that we have heard since that corridor was identified as an important link between the existing portions of Tecumseh Hamlet and even the growing parts of Tecumseh Hamlet further to the west along Manning Road. It's vital that we found a way to integrate this development area, especially at the time of the high school being located there when the secondary plan actually had commenced, to establish where could we find a logical means of putting people through that those new neighborhoods and those existing neighborhoods. There is a hypersensitivity to how that would be designed. And the plan is trying to advocate for really coming up with a design that adds to the park. And we accept the challenge of winning people over to the notion of providing a more formalized transportation corridor where one partially exists. You know, there's sort of a major pavement area that goes through there right now, and it's really transforming that into a full corridor that can move both people and automobiles, but also all alternative modes. Design it in a way that it more clearly establishes the relationship between mobility and users of the park. And we've had some discussions with the director of parks around the notion of how this can be the trigger to perhaps reorganizing how the park functions, where people are moving around the park, how users are interfacing with the park. And I think some of the precedent images, what we're trying to show is that a municipal road can actually not just be a transportation sewer, basically, that it can actually be designed in a way that it adds value to the park and performs multiple functions. So, we're very aware of the concerns and want to come up with a design that is acceptable and will function in a way that lets all the users know the intended use of that corridor and that it's intended to be a safe space, but adds value to the park. So more to come on that. And, you know, we view it as one of the major challenges to that southern quadrant to link that high school area and that whole growth area into the existing development, and really to add on to the base of McAuliffe Park as it is today, both the natural heritage feature, but also the recreation space that can spill into the new area. And this will become really one of the gems of that neighborhood south of the rail. But short version, we understand the concern and want to ensure there's a design that will work.
I just want to add to Councillor Houston. I know I have, you know, some reservations as well. I mean, it looks like it could be dissecting the park, and certainly you don't want to lose any of that. And now in the back of my mind as well is that you made a very good point on Banwell and the battery plant itself, and how we configure our road pattern in and out of our own subdivision, because traffic patterns or traffic culture is I'm going to try to get from point A to point B in the least resistance, and we've seen that right now in other parts, certainly in the community. So I mean, I looked at the design itself or the concept, and that looks incredible. But it's again the benefit of just kind of racing through from point A to point B through a park's not a conducive to the park atmosphere. There'd have to be some real traffic calming and so forth that would have to be put in there. I like the fact that nice wide active transportation, you know, through that area, and sidewalks and a lot of vegetation and so forth, and, you know, to complement McAuliffe Woods, and that is beautiful. Was there any thought, you know, even that I forget on LeBeuf, there was always an open lot there that I believe it's owned by the town, and with potential that would have been access to the one street, I think it's Odessa, that's coming off of 42 and then connecting into Shields eventually and so forth, as potential. I know it doesn't show on here, but opportunities, you know, in that regards. And then the other one from St. Alphonse itself, going to the north side of McAuliffe, and then coming down, you can see, you know, there is a street or eventually it looks like a street pattern there to connect into Shields and so forth. Any thought about that, or is it going to be right along? I guess it'd be dissecting between the northern portion of McAuliffe Woods and then in the hydro corridor. I don't know if that would create some issues. I don't know, but
through you, Mr. Mayor. So two parts to that question, and maybe I'll just start with when the EA process was first initiated. The municipal class EA process for the secondary plan, it did go through a matrix that evaluated alternatives. There were three, as I recollect, Shields being one extension, north of the woodlot, another, and the road you're speaking to, which is just south of the school. I can't think of the name either, but using that as the main east-west connection. They were all evaluated, and Shields did come out on top. So we can revisit that. There are challenges, I know, to the north with the woodlot, being that the woodlot has now basically expanded into the hydro corridor, and that brings its own challenges. But we can certainly pull that out, reconsider it, and confirm, you know, the results that came from that. And with that, I think what's owed to everyone is greater consideration of what would this look like. I mean, we had some precedent images and so on. There's been considerable discussion, but I think more needs to be done on how would this look, how would it work, and how would it change things as they might be today, and how would the interests of the public good be protected, both from the perspective of users, citizens, and as everyone's saying, we don't want roads to be speedways, and there are ways to design that out of a road. But we hear the message. I think some more work and consideration and detail needs to be brought forward on this issue, and we'll do that with the team.
But what I do like though, and it's kind of reminiscent on a road trip that a previous council in Canton, Ohio, a place called a development called Cherry Hill in Canton, which is now expanding. And when I look at how the streets are designed and also the diversity of housing, I love that concept where you know, it's a blend of single walk-ups, you know, townhomes, high rise. And, you know, people say, well, that's, you know, that's just kind of compressing everything. But the reality, when we did see that in Canton, it really looked good. It actually, and there was a huge blend of really high-end homes to affordable homes, all within the area. And then it all had its nodes of commercial support. And I think this is a great opportunity as well for the existing homes that are already there to have access to commercial entities close by, and interconnecting all that with obviously trails and so forth. I really like the kind of the overall blend of type of homes, and green space is very important, and the amount that's there. I'm surprised, and in particular when you're combining that with a conservation area with McAuliffe Woods right there, and then other really nice little neighborhood nodes in green space. I think it's a real, I think a real plus. I think, and I love the Main Street design piece concept that's there. I think this is something that I think citizens would be very pleased to see, you know, in that regards. Just a few little things I think that we need to, that weren't there in 2018, especially on the Banwell corridor and so forth. But maybe we've got some ideas of how maybe we can deal with the Banwell corridor. I mean, part of it is ours, and we're going through the expansion of that particular roadway, which is nice. And the only other thing, Brian, that I would like to, and I think we talked about it, and I mentioned it to the administrator a little bit today too, is that things have changed also from 18 in terms of the plants there, but also the hospital down the road. And with the expansion of 42 and so forth, it kind of changes the dynamics a little bit. In the southern portion of it at County Road 42, coming off the new Banwell piece, that's going to be the roundabout in that southern portion, where you've got kind of a little piece there. There's about 5 or 6 homes south of 42 on Banwell. That'll be cul-de-sac there, but the other area, there's, I think, some real potential to support some maybe institutional opportunities to support the hospital that's just up the road, because there's been some general interest in dealing with that. So I think it's a bit of work that we'll have to do, and I think you're looking into that. I think as we speak with certainly the county, because they're going through their official plan too, and just adding maybe just a little piece, you know, to the southern part that I think would benefit. It would benefit also the development itself. You know, looking at maybe hospital support like doctor's offices, dental, so forth, in that area. So there's a general interest. So that would be the only thing that I would add. But I think kudos to all involved in this. I think this is absolutely going to be really well received, not only by our citizens, but those who want to move into the community. Go ahead, Councillor Higginson and Councillor Tonio.
Thank you very much. And through you, I want to echo that I was really excited to kind of flip through this. And I particularly like that it seemed human and neighborhood centered as a kind of full approach. So I appreciate that. I'm hoping to get a better sense of, I'm looking at the pedestrian network and the cycling network and that kind of like movement section. And there's quite a bit of connection, which I appreciate, which would kind of go over or connect north of the tracks and south of the CB rail tracks. I'm trying to get a sense of safety wise, if I'm seeing that students maybe from the north are going to be walking, hopefully, or riding their bike to school and at TVA there. What is the kind of vision that we have of the pedestrian network and the cycling network crossing the CB rail tracks?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Very good question. And one thing we know in Tecumseh is that railway tracks are barriers to mobility. And, you know, we're hoping with some foresight, given the scale of this planning district, that we'll be able to integrate some safe crossing points. So in summary, we would note the following, I guess. Manning Road and Banwell Road are ultimately to be separated crossing points in terms of the road infrastructure and the trail infrastructure that's associated with those. L'Esperance will remain at grade with the noted barricades that are there to control the movement. What you'll see on the plan, and actually if we could just go to slide, I think it's 36, but my numbering might be off here, okay? It's an open space structure, that one will work, or there's a few. There is a crossing point that's planned and shown as an opportunity between Banwell Road and L'Esperance. There we go. Oops. Yep, that will work. Thank you. And I'll point to the screen behind me because everybody can see that. Maybe easier if I cannot. Right there. Do that without hemorrhaging my neck. A lot of debate about that internally with the consulting team and administration between all of us who are involved with this project. And I really want to emphasize, you know, I'm doing the talking right now and Phil's sitting here, but there's a whole team of people in the town, multi-departments, and our consulting team involved in this project. We really do think it's important to try and look at first glean at grade crossing. They are accomplishable in urban settings. And we think it's vital that this area to the south linked to the north, we already have a school board with an interest in another site. You can see the little blue symbol that is shown there as a future potential school site. And we think it's important that the walkability and bikeability of the neighborhood be accommodated through an internal crossing. And you'll notice it's through the Ontario Hydro Corridor, and it also runs along the east edge of a pond on the north side. So lots of public land in the vicinity. It's getting through the technical analysis and review of how do you introduce a safe crossing at a rail. It could be a grade separated. That is a possibility, but unknown at this point. So really what we're trying to identify is it's a priority for us to have a crossing if we can get one integrated. And I would note, I've heard a few comments about the complete community notion here and, you know, a walkable community, very much in line with where we're heading in terms of community building right now. And I think everyone would have seen the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund just came out. Very strong emphasis on complete communities, walkable communities, and intensification. So all of that's trying to be integrated in this area, including how you move people. We have to give choices to people that are walkable and are accessible intuitively. So that's the goal here. And really that's an opportunity we want to keep working on.
Thank you, through you, your worship, to Councillor Higginson. I would like to add that the A lot of the major north-south active transportation spines, whether it's Banwell and County Road 43 or Lesbronce or Manning Road, they have been identified in previous environmental assessments. They are planned to be integrated into the road reconstruction. So if you're looking at from County Road 43 from CP Rail down to County Road 42, we're probably another year and a half away for those works to be completed. That would also include active transportation, off-road active transportation for the safety of the user. The town is looking at constructing an off-road multi-use trail on Lesbronce Road from County Road 22 to County Road 42 next year. And there's some active transportation facilities on Manning Road as the county continues with their phases, starting from County Road 22, moving southerly to County Road 42. And then ultimately County Road 42, which is currently under construction with the underground works this year. They are a number of years away from road construction and surface construction, but that will also have a component of active transportation. So I think over the next number of years, you're going to see a lot of these major spines, whether it's Manning, Lesbronce, Banwell, 42 be built. And then from there, as development proceeds within the Hamlet area, you'll start to see those interconnections.
Oh. Yeah, that's where I'm going. Councilor Tonio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about traffic. I see a lot of grid pattern here, and I see about 10 highways that people go flying down the road. Concerning my previous job and complaints. Is there a philosophy behind this grid pattern instead of making more curve roads or roads that you just can't put on the gas and take off down 10 blocks straight away? We're going to have a lot of four-way stops, a lot of requests for that. East-west, I see 3 highways. People are going to be speeding down. So the question I have is, does the grid pattern help traffic or deter traffic? My feeling is it helps. It doesn't help traffic. It promotes speeding. It promotes going through stop signs. I don't know. I just want to know how the grid pattern is a safer way of designing. That's my question.
I'll go first, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor. And this is quite a loaded question, and it's a very good question. But I think we start from the premise of making a complete transportation system. And I think there's enough literature that demonstrates the curvilinear model of road design, which is sort of your classic suburban 1970s through the early 2000s, has really worked out well for not providing effective mobility choices other than for vehicles. So there's been a landing pad that's been created, which is the grid network, is what optimizes all types of transportation modes in terms of interconnectivity, both for your walkability, biking, and vehicles in transit. And they're very adaptable communities. So when we start with that premise, really what you see there is a road network that offers a significant amount of dispersion of traffic. There isn't traffic funneled necessarily to key road routes. There is a significant number of roads that offer a means of moving around a neighborhood. The secondary thing I would add, and then I'll flip it over for engineering, roads need to be designed that intuitively message to the user the speed that's intended. So very wide open roads with no friction created are quite desirable for speeding. So there will be a high emphasis on road design here in terms of creating roads that are messaging to the user. There's multiple users on the road, hopefully bikers, walkers. And secondly, that by intuition and the design, you will drive slower. There will be traffic in this area. The densities promoted are going to create some level of traffic and hopefully support transit. But that's really the philosophical basis of the grid road system, which is much more efficient. Phil, if you want to add anything.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Tonio. I would also like to add, you know, as the as the environmental assessments proceeded forward for County Road 43 by the county from CP to 42, as well as the city for Banwell, their section, the town of Tecumseh was dedicated only a number of connection points, right? If you're looking north of the tracks, we have 3 connection points to Banwell Road, Intersection Road, Maisonneuve, and Gwen Street, right? And because of the short distance as well, that's where you're going to start seeing the east-west movement, right? And similarly, south of the CP tracks, we were only provided certain connection points, Shield Street being one, and then I think there's a street between Shields and CP itself, right? So those are pretty much the starting points for connection to the major transportation system there, and then connecting into the existing roads to the west. And I would also offer, when you start placement of ponds and parks and different amenities, and trying to provide access around there, the grid system, as Mr. Hillman was indicating, kind of it draws itself out as part of that process.
Thank you. You resolved my question, and I feel better about how you guys explained those things to me. So thank you very much for my great question. You said great question, everybody else except me.
It's okay. You had a great question. Councilor Jobin.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the comments that you made about the 42 works that are occurring right now in the hospital. That's going to change the culture of the traffic. So I would really hope that that is considered, but it's already been discussed, so I appreciate that. Everything's been touched on. It looks fantastic. It sounds great. I'm hopeful to see more public input, just because it was kind of low key, plus things are opening up more. In the park and the separation or the division of the park, I've seen it in Kingsville. The arena side is on one side of the road and the other side is baseball parks and soccer. And there's just a small throughway road. It's slow, 2 small lanes, and it actually even provides additional parking, angled parking on each roadside, which is a traffic calming measure. So the division even provides additional parking, which is a plus. And then you have different athletics on different sides. And the other side, south side of 42 already feels a disconnection to Tecumseh, and now with additional amenities and more sexy to the north of them, and with the 42 structure changing, it's widening and there's going to be increased traffic. I would just like to see maybe a little more opportunity for them to have safe crossing across 42 because of the additional amenities. So anyhow, so more public meetings, and just consider the development on the opposite side of 42. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Dorner.
All right, thank you. With the current demand for homes and the battery plant being built, when is development expected to begin for this project?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that question. A couple of things will be drivers. We are engaged with the property owners, particularly to the north, closer to County Road 22. The infrastructure will move from north to south through the planning area. And as council will recall, Mr. Bartnick's team is working on advancing infrastructure, particularly some trunk infrastructure from the north to the south, sanitary trunk and water main. I think perhaps a report coming forward in a couple of weeks with some details on that. So we are operating from the premise that development could commence sometime next year. Again, subject to, I guess, conclusion of some issues. Even the owners, if we don't have on this drawing, which we don't have to move slides, there are multiple owners. So there's lots of coordination that will happen between property ownership groups, some of which have multiple ownership interests. So the town is looking to, where possible, even commence some studies that we require, for example, archaeological, and we're doing some of them with cost sharing with the owners. The intent is to open the lands up next year at some point, and then there are any number of opportunities that may or may not be taken up. And there are appeal rights through these processes and so on. But what we want to do as a municipality is to create the opportunity. We think the demand is there. We're quite confident on that front. We know there's interest in the property owners. They are engaged developers, at least the portion, particularly north of Intersection Road. So it could be next year sometime.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Worship.
In 1 week?
To Councillor Dorner, just as an update to council. So we did have a report earlier this year to obtain approval for expanded scope for the trunk sanitary and trunk water, as well as some additional funding. We have put out an RFP for engineering consulting services. We do have a report that we're preparing for the April 25th RCM to get a consultant on board. The plan is still to move ahead with the trunk sanitary and water from 22 down to Intersection Road, as well as the interceptor sewer and water main on Intersection Road as a phase 1, which would commence early 2024. And followed by the second phase, which would be the trunk sanitary and water from Intersection Road to south of the hydro corridor. We broke it up in phases because of the additional approvals from CP as well as Hydro One. And we didn't want that first initial phase to be caught up and trying to obtain some of those approvals. So we took a strategic approach. We hope to have an engineer on board very shortly, and the detailed design will commence in parallel with this study and the environmental assessment that's also ongoing with the consultants. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that report. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Then before I call for a recommendation, I just want to extend my thanks to the presenters this evening. This really an exciting project, and it's been a long time coming. Where we've done a lot of infilling and our CIP on Tecumseh Road, but this is a new opportunity, greenfield development within the corporation, and we're really excited about it. So I want to thank you for certainly the presentation, and looking forward to seeing what the general public, what they think of it, in the PIC. So we're certainly going to be anxious to see how that next report to council, and so we'll be waiting for that. And so in the meantime, I need a mover and a seconder to move the report that's been presented in the PowerPoint. Councillor Tony moves, Councillor Dorner supports. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And so thank you, and we bid you a good night on that. And so nothing further. Adjournment's in order. Councillor Houston and Councillor Jobin, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you very much.